Welcome to the Inside Out Experience. We are a team of trauma recovery coaches, speakers, teachers, and leaders helping heal the world forward. Our passion is helping individuals with their coaching needs personally, professionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. The following is a recording of a live class presented on March 23, 2022 on Internal Family Systems Theory and Parts Work by Dr. Richard Schwartz. We break down what Family Systems Theory by Dr. Murray Bowen is, and then merge his nuclear family model or solar system with Internal Family Systems Theory and what we call parts work. Follow along about the three main characters of your parts and how they can help you live your best life from the inside out.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Hopefully you're all getting to see this. We're still working out some technology issues today. It seems to be the day. So it's Wednesday. That's how that goes.
Well, we did want to talk about a few things that we teased, and that is internal family systems. For those of you that don't know what IFS stands for, it stands for internal family systems. And we will be looking at this through the lens of Pepper's new book called Rest, the Inside Out Experiences, Restorative Response Systems Theory. So I think we really should take a minute to get in touch somatically right now. We both had a day, and I'm fresh off the street, and I really need to get in touch right now. I've, recently learned of a death of a dear friend, and you've had your experiences today as well. So why don't you lead us this time?
I will. Okay. I appreciate that. I think that's exactly where we should start. I would appreciate if you would lower that and check the Facebook to make sure we don't have any comments coming in as we do this. Okay. So while he's preparing that and just kind of setting things up so we're not missing, please send your comments, please share. And if you're with us right now, what we're going to do, we're going to engage in a somatic exercise. So somatics, soma means body. And when we've been through it, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. We've all dealt with something, I'm sure, today, if not recently this week, being Monday. And so I just would invite everybody to just for a moment, as you sit in your chair or as you stand, to turn that down a little bit. Notice how you feel. I just want you, if it feels right to you, close your eyes and just feel what's holding you. Feel where your feet are landing. Feel where you're sitting. Maybe you're sitting on your feet. Maybe you're standing on your feet. And I just want you to feel. And I'm going to walk you through an exercise that I like to do with clients before we actually get into parts work. Because as we do parts work, one of the things I have learned is that if we're in touch with our body, we're more able to go through the healing process. And trauma is a disconnect. So oftentimes it's a disconnect between the soul and the body, because trauma happens to the body. And so we want to heal the body, we want to heal the soul. And to do that requires we first get them connected. Okay. So I'm going to start by, I have I'm aware of what's holding my body up, what's supporting me. I am rubbing my palms together because my fingers are a little bit cold, but I also like to stir up the energy in my palms. And energy cannot be created or destroyed, but we know that it can be transmuted. And I just want to take all the energy that I have endured today. And I want to take any energy that does not serve me, and I want to release it. And I want to make sure I don't have any blockages in the connection between my body and my soul. So I'm going to actually back up just a little bit here. And those of you that are with me, I invite you to just take a deep breath. And for some, it'll feel right to put your hands on your lap. And for some, it will feel more correct to put your hand on your chest. And just see how that feels to you. And we're going to walk through, we're going to go from bottom to top and top to bottom, and then we're going to do a bilateral movement. So think about your feet or the lowest setting part of your body. And I want you to, on the inhale, we're going to tighten our muscles, and on the exhale, we're going to release into relaxation. And we're going to do this through a series of breaths now. So as I inhale, I'm going to start by tightening up my toes and the arch of my feet and maybe my ankles. And on the exhale, I'm going to release that tension and relax my feet. And on the inhale next, I'm going to tighten my legs, all the muscles in my legs and my feet. And this time I'm going to curl my toes upwards instead of under on the inhale. And on the exhale, I'm going to release. And on the next inhale, I'm going to pay attention to my core. And I'm going to tighten my hips, my buttocks, my stomach. And I'm going to, on the inhale, do that. And on the exhale, I'm going to release. And I'm going to now do this all the way up my spine into my shoulders and my arms. I'm going to tighten all the muscles on the inhale. And on the exhale, back into release. And notice for you if it causes you to sit more up or if it just causes you to draw your shoulders up more on the inhale. And we're going to do that one more time. Inhale and exhale. And now we're going to pay attention to our neck and our chin, our jawline, and even our eyebrows. And I want you to really wrinkle your head, every muscle that you can possibly muster right now on this inhale. And exhale. And we're going to do the same thing. And this time we're going to start at the top and we're going to work our way down. So we're going to make the faces and everything, and feel free to join us. We're going to inhale with tension. Exhale, it's relaxation. And now we're going to go back to our core. Inhale. And exhale into relaxation. I'm going to go back to our thighs and our legs and your buttocks, your sphincter, all of it, tighten. And notice as you exhale, the quiver on your body. Do you have a quiver? And just be mindful of it. Okay. And we're going to do one more, but this time I want you to, as you breathe in, I want you to breathe in from the ground up, and you're going to inhale positivity. You're going to take the charge from the earth, and you're going to inhale that all the way up through your body. And on the exhale, you're going to release it out, and you're going to release it as light and love. Okay. So inhaling tension, positivity, and release light and love. And then if it feels right to you, I just want you to notice how that feels throughout your body. Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel like anything shifted for you? Do you feel nothing at all? And there's no wrong answer, but this is a way to connect and just be mindful and aware of your body as we move into what we're going to talk about tonight, which is parts work and internal family systems theory. Okay? Let's do one more inhale and exhale, and then I think we're ready, okay? And you can tighten on this, or you can just imagine you're breathing in the positivity and releasing it into the world. And we're just going to do this together. Inhale. And exhale. Okay.
Well, thank you, Coach Joy. I needed that. I don't know if anyone else did, but I appreciate you hanging in with us if you didn't. I do want to just jump right in if we can. We should be all set. But I'm just going to start with the section of the book that talks about parts work. And we're going to talk our way through this and make sure everybody can understand it to the point where it makes sense to you. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We will be on hand to answer them. But here it goes. From the book, The Inside Out Experiences, Restorative Response Systems Theory. Let me state here that family systems theory and all of the previously related elements are about external relationships with family, village, tribe, and community. That being said, it is fundamentally true that humans are meaning-making machines and we internalize our experiences. In Rest, we use reframing as a response to help survivors make meaning of their experiences. Information in this section will aid in clarity on meaning making and reframing as restorative responses for healing from trauma. We'll now explore the internal space of our systems, habits, and thought patterns. I highly encourage you to take a moment and some notes on what your childhood family of origin solar system structure looked like. See, this is why I wanted to start at the beginning.
Okay, well.
Please give
We can break down the solar system real fast.
I'll let you do that.
Yeah.
Because you're practiced at it and I'm not.
So the nuclear family system, as they call it, is a theory that all families revolve around a sun. And sometimes that sun of the solar system, you kind of imagine sun in the middle, and actually my solar system over there. I recently did a group on Encanto and the family systems. And so my son and I actually built this, and we have since learned that the glue that comes in these boxes is garbage. So excuse my, all right, here's your solar system. Now, in my solar system growing up, our sun was religion. Our whole lives evolved around the church and how we could be of service to who we believed in as God. And when it comes to family systems theory, the internal family systems theory, there's 3 types. Our poodle's in the room, and of course, naturally, he wanted to contribute to this session by knocking over my guitar, which now needs all the tuning and love in the world. Thank you, sweetheart. Okay, so solar system. The sun is going to be the hottest, most attractive thing in the house, in the system, in the family system. And so for us, it was religion. Now, those that are closest to the sun benefit the most from its power, and those further out do not. And what can happen is we have managers, firefighters, and I'm going to forget the other one if I don't pull it up. Exiles. I should have known because I'm familiar with the exiles, not so much. So we'll get into what managers and firefighters do, but I just want you to think about, for the purposes of tonight and as we go through this live, when you think about your family, what do you revolve around? And sometimes it's a system like religion, sometimes it's a system like politics, and sometimes it's a person. Sometimes there's a matriarch in the family. So on my mother's side of the family, it was her mother, Nanny. She was the sun. And we all went to church. We all did things with the family, but it was always about, what's Nanny doing? Let's join Nanny. You know, she was always, that's where you go for the holidays. Like, it was all about Nanny. Okay, so that was our son. And then because I was her namesake, I was the closest to her. And so I benefited the most from, I mean, she would never say that to anybody, but totally know I was her favorite. And everyone knew it was like this unspoken understanding that like I was Nanny's favorite. So I very much understand what it's like to be close to the sun, but I also understand what it's like to be exiled from the sun. Because in my family of origin, religion absolutely was the sun, but it was a more patriarchal framing of religion. And I am not a woman who sets well in patriarchal settings. Just going to put that out there. Like I totally need a back seat in that space, but I was also just flat out exiled. I did not get to benefit from the son of patriarchal religion because I think out loud and I don't care sometimes.
And like a feminist.
And became the opposite of what the sun was. And so I got exiled and I got to be out in the cold, and I understand what it's like to be isolated and not welcome at that table. So for the purposes of tonight, that's just kind of give you a visual of our little science project here that we did as you think about your nuclear family system. So we move on into the book and we're talking about, we'll get into, like I said, the 3 parts of firefighters, managers, and exiles. But go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll just pick it up.
Yep.
We'll now explore the internal space of our systems, habits, and thought patterns. I highly encourage you to take a moment and some notes on what your childhood family of origin / solar system structure looked like. How does it differ from your current day system? How does it differ, and how would you change it? That is an important question, wouldn't you say, Pepper?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had to change mine a few times.
Yeah, it's a work in progress at all times, is the way that I would frame that.
Absolutely.
Do you honor yourself as the son, or do you subscribe to a belief system of an external but perhaps communal son? Was religion, poverty, racism part of your system? Do you currently allow the pandemic, politics, and finances to shine as suns or moons in your system, or are they more tertiary planets for you? Parts are the individual pieces, characters, and/or personalities that make up your inner system for understanding and responding to the world and outer or external stimuli. I think we need to push pause there and speak to that sentence there. I know for me, I've been doing parts work on myself for the last 6 months or so, and I'm never at a loss for finding or discovering, as it were, like Christopher Columbus, albeit, but I'm discovering parts that I did not even knew existed. And that has been, frankly, disturbing. Yeah. It can be a season of darkness, or not despair, because we practice healthy habits in when we're engaging with these parts. Right. But the depth of who you are within your own internal system is much larger than you may even consider.
It's a whole internal solar system. So I do want to clarify something, because April, thank you for your comment. Family systems theory, or the nuclear family systems theory, is not Dr. Schwartz's internal family systems theory. And that's why you've not heard it framed. And I know, because you're a coach, that's why you've not heard it framed in this way before. In the book, I combine the theories, because like my statement said, what we experience outwardly, we internalize. So I'm taking Dr. Richard Schwartz's theory on internal family systems, and he breaks it down with managers and firefighters and exiles. And then I ask us to, instead of having an external sun, to see ourselves as the sun. Right. And then from there, build outward. And this is a little bit of, who is that? Aristotle and his egocentric universe. I'm asking us to do that. And I ask survivors to consider this as a modality for understanding and healing.
Yeah.
Because too often what happens with survivors of trauma is we make everything else important and prioritized, and we will heal everyone and everything else and do so from an empty cup. So we're not fulfilling the fullness of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really appreciate making that comment, because I wanted to clear that up for others that may be watching and going, hey, the same thing. This isn't the same theory. You're right. It's not. It is two theories being crossed over into one. But it makes sense as you break it down. So,
well, okay. I can go back to an example that I gave in the last live that we did.
Okay.
One of my internal managers is 4 years old.
Mm.
And you know what I mean.
Mm.
If you don't know what I mean, go back to the last live that we did.
Mm.
And I shared a story. And that was the advent of the longest living manager in my system.
That you're aware of.
That I'm aware of at this point, yes. I'm glad you added that.
Yes.
Okay.
And so parts work is the journey of going within, and we going and finding the parts of us that hold our trauma for us.
Mm-hmm.
It is my personal belief that parts are soul, and they are compartmentalized soul. And so when you talk about your earliest known part being this 4-year-old manager, that 4-year-old is your soul.
Yeah.
And in your journey, in your soul journey here on this 3D earth, you had a life experience, and that life experience happened to be a trauma. And with your little 4-year-old part, it got trapped. And I say trapped, but really he got frozen in trauma, and he was there holding it, waiting for you to find him. Mm-hmm. And go to him and love him and release that. Mm-hmm. And it gets hard for people sometimes to think about parts, because they start immediately going, no, that's multiple personality disorder. That's
Which
DID. That's yes. I also liken parts to things as simple as my customer service voice. Mm-hmm. And I also liken parts to, inner shadow work.
The different hats.
And the different hats that we wear. Yep, absolutely. So the external being internal, and we believe in healing from the inside out. And it's deeper than the marrow of your bones. It's down in your soul. So the question is, what are parts?
Parts are the individual pieces, characters, and/or personalities that make up our inner system for understanding and responding to the world and outer or external stimuli. What are parts? In internal family systems, parts are your teammates in processing and responding to the world. They are characterized into 3 separate groups: managers, firefighters, and exiles.
Let me break down what those are.
You have the.
I do have another, but we're just gonna use some characters because we can get creative. So we're gonna use Bruno as the exile. Thank you.
Hopefully you're familiar.
If you're not, it's fine. And she would be the sun. Where is my girl? Okay. Ruiz is gonna be, she's gonna be our manager. And here we go. And we're going to go ahead and make her the firefighter. Yes. All right. We have the exile. All right. So these 3 right here. We'll put grandma down. Okay. So here we go. We have the exile, the firefighter, and the manager. Okay. All of the coaches watching this right now are screaming because they're excited. So managers, what do the managers do? They micromanage all aspects of all relationships. And that means internally and externally. So there's always a voice going off in your head when you're in relationship with somebody, and it is managing you in that relationship. you need to pay attention to them. You're not doing this right. You're not, oh, what are they doing? How do you respond to that? How do you fawn to that? And that they do that, and they maintain control. And the goal for the manager is to avoid rejection and hurt. Okay, so if there's somewhere inside of you that avoids rejection and hurt, your conflict avoidance, you hate pressure, guess what? That's your manager. All right. Also, that part of you that judges people, that's your manager. The part of you that is the planner, the striver, the caretaker, passive pessimist, and then the self-critical part, that's a manager. And these can all be in the same part, and they can be in separate parts. So you could have 100 of these. Probably, you probably don't have 100 of them, but you probably have more than one.
Let's hope you
Because imagine, okay, so she's in the book, in the movie, in Encanto, she is always the strong one. She's always taking care of everyone's burdens. That's that caregiver part. But guess what? This little dude in the movie is also a manager. How is that so? Because he's managing the kingdom, all the animals. That's his gift, is with animals and management. Okay. Now, there's our core self, our soul, and then there's all of the parts of our soul. So it's like your hand and then all the fingers connected to it. That's all of my parts. Okay. So our next part is going to be the firefighter. So we know what our manager is, and now we're going to talk about our firefighter. And in this case, this is our firefighter. Firefighters protect the other, are the protector of the system. So this one runs around and makes sure that the manager's doing their job, and they go put out fires over here. And oh my gosh, there's conflict over here. This is the peacemaker. They often respond once an exile has been activated. So an exile is, as long as they're silent, they're out of sight, out of mind. But if they start hurting or they get activated, this is the firefighters like, shh, nope, none of that. Calm down. All right. In hopes of soothing the trigger part. So there, again, that caregiving part. Sleep, shopping, work, sex, diet, exercise, addictions, disassociation, low impulse control, high reactivity. That's your firefighter. So your firefighter is waiting to sound the alarm all the time. So that intense, that anxiety part.
That is, if I can just let you all know and share my own business so I don't have to share anyone else's. That is the firefighter part of myself is one of the most prominent parts of me. And people that know me, I'm sure you'll be nodding your head right now. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking to write something and to expose something or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. So then our last part is the exile. The exile holds the painful emotions that have been isolated from the conscious self for the protection of the system. They carry the wound burden. All of your traumas, all of your shame, all the judgment when you were projecting shame, all of the judgment when you were projecting shame. The exile is the one who holds that. The exile is your angry voice. The exile is your fear. The exile is loss and grief. The exile is dependency. It is loneliness. It is terror. And so these are all, again, these parts are your family. They help you in this journey of life. And what we do in internal family systems theory is we go in and we talk to these parts and we help them figure out how to coexist with calm, with curiosity, with confidence, with creativity, with clarity, and in connection and safety. And when we bring our parts into the fold, we create healing. So.
Okay, so moving on, woven into the fabric of our parts is our core, internal, authentic self. Now, I just want to stop there too, because there are times when your core, internal, authentic self might disappear for like a whole season. depending on what you're going through, and particularly if you've been activated into into trauma and you're in a state of survival. Okay. If you're in a state of survival, I got news for you. You aren't you. And that's okay, but we can get you back from there. You can get yourself even back from there. But I think it needs to be said, because I'm just walking around the world now, and my observer, okay, is seeing so much trauma, like everywhere I look. Okay, I volunteer at the Greenwood Rising Museum a few hours a week. I just left there, and I was pretty activated when I came in the house, because the compassionate part of me saw people coming and going from the space where I was volunteering all day, completely activated. And there wasn't a thing that I could do about it, because there's nothing in place there that allows me to practice what I know and help these people out. We're trying to remedy that now. Some people are aware, and we have meetings set up, but I just felt so irresponsible for letting grown-up people walk out of our doors just traumatized. And if you don't know what happens at the Greenwood Rising Museum, look it up. It's the Greenwood Rising Museum in Tulsa, and it's curated to show the truth about the massacre that used to be called a race riot. Okay, and it was actually, in fact, a racial massacre that happened in 1921 in the city of Tulsa.
Yes.
And people are learning this for the first time, and all sorts of their own internal parts are coming out in that space. And it's hard to watch. Yeah. For me, it is.
I'm sure. And add to it that what's being triggered within you in that situation is as a Black man in America, there's the racial trauma, there's the intergenerational trauma of you are the descendant of people traumatized in this way. And then you add to it that you continue that lineage. So there's a solid chance that your parts and the parts of your lineage are affected by this. And I want to say too, that we've just talked about the 3 parts being managers, firefighters, and exiles, and parts can change their job. They can change their function. And that fluidity comes with healing, and also what's working in service to survival. So just because you discovered your 4-year-old manager, he's not your only manager, and it doesn't mean he's going to stay a manager forever. He might now get to join the sun. And as he heals and becomes part of your authentic self, he'll always hold space and carry that 4-year-old event. But now it doesn't have to hurt. Now it doesn't have to do more damage in who you are today, even. Right. So with that being said,
okay,
go ahead.
When we allow ourselves compassion, courage, and curiosity, and gain distance, but not isolation, as well as safety of and for our parts and struggles, we permit radical acts of self-love, care, and restoration. Your self desires to protect their peace, heal wounds of unhealthy attachments, isolation, shame, and fear. Consider that the how-to part of this journey is perhaps completely and only yours. We repeat over and over again, if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and you've watched any of our videos, you might notice that I reference how there are 7.8 billion perspectives in the world. And everyone's journey is different. And I'm not talking about by degrees. It's utterly different. My experience in the same moment, okay, let's just say Coach Joy and I are at the same exact event, things are happening and whatnot, and we come back and we're talking about this later. I have a completely different story of events than what she has. Or if you were with us, okay, you'd have a completely different take on everything. And we can maybe agree on some of the elements of the experience, but it's never going to be exactly the same for me as it was for you.
It's true.
So I just thought I'd point that out.
No, I appreciate that.
So maybe also imagine how we could interact with other human beings as though they too were parts.
So now we're going to flip the script. So we've internalized our experiences in relationship with others, and we co-create sometimes. Like I know for me, one of my parts is the voice of one of my parental figures.
Yeah.
And I have had to do a lot, because that part, when they start talking, triggers me. And I've had to do a lot of healing. And I say that because now when I interact with parental figures, if I can do so from a space of recognizing they're in a trauma response, or they are being an exile or a manager or a firefighter, then my conversations now carry with them a more healing tone and
a more compassionate and understanding tone.
And then and in doing that, in understanding that, and having that armor, I protect myself from being triggered by the external. And even if on the inside something's jumping off, I know how to respond. I know how to respond. And that's what I hope to teach people. So yes, be mindful of when you're dealing with other people. Is this manager behavior? Is this firefighter behavior? Is this exile behavior? And how am I co-creating with them that identity? Because sometimes when someone starts acting like an exile, it's easy to just go, you know what? I'll leave you out there. I'll leave you alone. And sometimes what they need is to be brought into the fold.
Right.
And that's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to be there in their healing journey. And I absolutely appreciate and hold space for that. And
yeah, because it is hard work.
It's heavy lifting. It's a lot of heavy lifting.
So I think we already answered that.
Yep.
So parts work helps us understand that our parts are there to help us either to survive our trauma or to cope in the world after our trauma. Honor them, appreciate them, give them nurturing compassion, kindness, curiosity, and courage to cope. You can imagine it as a puzzle. Your authentic self, the higher self, is the outline and backing for the pieces and parts to land. Each part holds an imprint of you at a disconnected and even intersected place in your life journey. Altogether, it's a glorious picture of your wholeness and restoration. Speak to that.
Yes, yes. So whether you like puzzles or not, we can all appreciate having a place to land. And we can all appreciate having a place to belong. And it's not lost on me that often the most misbehaved children are the ones who need the most love. And the same is true for adults. The most ill-behaved adults are often the ones who need the most authentic love. And it's important to start here.
Yeah.
I have no ability to give you the fullness of all the love you deserve as a partner in life if I don't start in here and start learning how to love the you that I co-created in here.
Right.
And start looking at, is he in an exile space right now? Is he in a manager space right now? Is he in a firefighter space right now? Because even in that, I can go, how am I contributing? Am I reacting to you as a firefighter and I'm reacting as a manager? Am I being a firefighter and exiling you? And when I start recognizing that, it also helps me to have this puzzle to like lay it all out and go, okay, this is a piece I need to grow. This is a piece I have shrunk. This is and all together though, all of it all together in the hot mess that we are.
And we all are.
It's still such a glorious picture of your authentic self. In all healing is, if you hear nothing else I say today, hear this. Healing is the act of reconnecting internally. Mm-hmm. If you can't forgive somebody, like I have very different beliefs on forgiveness. And I want people to know that if it's hard, if it's beyond you to forgive somebody or something that happened to you, it's okay to exile that for now. And it's okay to understand that the only person who deserves that forgiveness is you. And sometimes it's a part of you. I have had to go back to parts of myself that fawned in service to survival and forgive her, because her behavior to others looked like whatever it looked like. But to me, I shamed her for it. I shunned her for it. I rejected her for it. And all she was doing was surviving.
When you're in when you are pushed outside the window of capacity, okay, we talked about this, I believe, in the last live. When you're pushed outside of the window of capacity, your reptilian brain kicks in, okay? And your reptilian brain's job is to keep you alive.
Yep.
And that's all it does. That's all it does.
Right.
And when you get pushed into that place, your activity, your actions or inaction is a result of what that part of your brain decided is the best course in order to keep you alive. That's why some people fight, some people run, and some people freeze, fall down, whatever it might be. And there is no correct way to respond in that space, because ultimately you're in a position where you have no choice but to survive. It becomes almost as uncontrollable as your heartbeat or your breathing.
These are subconscious behaviors you're doing all the time.
Yep.
Don't have to think about them.
Exactly.
And that's what the reptilian brain does, is it tells your logical brain, hey, I need you to go offline right now because you're talking too much, you're making too much noise, you're distracting us, and we're going to survive.
Yeah.
We're gonna take off, we're gonna fight, we're gonna swing at everything. And we'll talk about in future lives how to respond to those things.
How to get yourself back to a regulated state.
Yes, back in your window of capacity, back to a regulated state, back to restoration and healing.
Right.
And we're gonna go ahead. We're coming up on an hour already.
Really?
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
I have no idea what to do. Okay, let's keep going. Parts work is a lot like learning to parent the inner child. Often, the disconnect in understanding how healthy relationships work to begin with is where we find survivors get stuck in their trauma and healing journey. When we have a part that plays a negative feedback loop with shame, we often find ourselves at some point in resistance to that part, or perhaps we believe we deserve this inner abusive part. Yeah, that is a mouthful.
Let's let that land for a moment, actually.
Yeah.
Because if you're a survivor and you're watching this right now, you've already identified at least one place that you do that. There's some part of you that you deny connection and affection because you believe it to be abusive or not worthy of your solar system. And that's the part that you do need to go and forgive at some point. And it doesn't have to be today, but hold space for that. Hold space for that. And I also too wanted to say, for survivors who are sitting there and going, parts work is a lot like learning to parent the inner child, but my parents weren't that great. It's okay. Because the beautiful part about parts work is we can learn to be good parents. We can learn to be good parents here, and it'll make us good parents out here. And it's not beyond you in your healing journey. It might feel like it, because I know for me, when I started, I was like, I don't even know if I know what healthy parenting looks like. I don't know if I agree with what I experienced growing up, at least the majority of it. And how do I even build a safe, appropriate, healthy parental relationship with my parts? And that is something we do teach here at the Inside Out Experience. So sometimes we wane between the comfort of familiarity in this loop being abusive and thus fawn with this part. And if this flies over your head right now, don't worry about it, because we've talked about fawning, we've talked about shame. But when I talk about the comfort of familiarity, this is what often keeps survivors stuck in abusive, traumatic spaces.
What's actually going on is you're stuck in the past.
And it's, if you find yourself as a survivor stuck in an environment that is continually abusing and traumatizing you, and you don't know how to get out of it, that is something we are equipped. We literally have curriculum for exit strategies in those situations. And we also have resources to help you survive the situation while you remain in it until such a time as you can be or are ready to remove yourself from that space.
Sometimes we want to fight it, silence it, and hurt it like it hurts us.
Speaking to parts.
Yes. If, however, we sat down with an IFS expert, internal family systems, or trauma recovery coach, we would be walked through a restorative conversation between ourselves, the part, lost my space, and any other parts that may be contributing to the pain or healing of this part and their connection within the internal family. They, experts of IFS, utilize consent, compassion, courage, and curiosity in finding and acknowledging all parts that want to be seen. Coaches utilize different forms of rest, whether they know it or not. And I think we're gonna put a tack right there while you address that.
Yeah, so rest is the restorative response system theory, and we'll go into that another time, but that's what the book is about. But when we talk about, bring it back.
Okay.
When we talk about how to go in there and address this, do you want to give like a 3-second example? Or you want me to give you a 3-second example of IFS work, parts work?
You want to do one with me?
Yeah, do you mind?
Go.
If anyone has objections, comment right now. You didn't comment, so you don't, so it's happening. All right. So parts work, we would start with a breathing exercise. I usually walk my clients through a breathing exercise, a somatic exercise, and then we go right to it because it can take a minute. But here's the down and dirty of it. You close your eyes, and I would ask you to just think about any emotion at all. And with that emotion attached to it, I want you to think about a significant time in your life that you felt that particular emotion. And I want you to go to that space and observe in that emotion, fully embody that emotion, and inside yourself, who, if anyone, is there? And do you have somebody?
Mm-hmm. A whole community of people.
Okay. And I want you to, as you think about this community of people and parts, for fun, which of them has the biggest emotion in return in that space?
I would say someone that at the time I considered a tertiary influence on me.
Okay. Now you're speaking of an external being that you've internalized as a part. Okay. Sometimes it's not that, FYI. This is just an example of 1,000 ways it can really look. So it's a at that space and time tertiary individual that you will be bringing into the fold, or you did eventually bring into the fold.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So when you think about the emotions in that space, and this is parts work, when you think about the emotions in that space and you think about this other part, what was the process that you believe is what brought them into the space?
The attachment cry.
And if you don't know what an attachment cry is, we'll get into that more because it's part of our somatics training. So you have this attachment cry, Is it an attachment cry from you or from the other?
From me.
From you. And so that's what caused you to bring this part in. Okay. Was this part at the time a manager? Or were they in exile? Were they a firefighter, or neither, or none?
I would say none of the above. That's who they were. They were being their authentic self.
Okay.
And just operating from a place of compassion and hospitality.
Okay. So what I would normally do, and I'm not going to do this today, but what I would normally do is we would just have a conversation with that part. How are you? What do you feel safe to share? Because what happens when we close our eyes and we attach an emotion and we get present internally, and then we start with consent. Hey, what's your name? Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk?
Mm-hmm.
Consenting connection.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to hug?
Mm-hmm.
Consenting connection. And I would walk through a conversation about what's your damage, what's your hurt, we would work up to that, and sometimes in parts work, what I like to do is just build the bridge between the self and the part, because damage has been done there. Maybe the bridge before was burnt down, and now that part is so hurt that when they turn around and look at us, they have ugliness to share. They have pain to share. And so I don't want to put the other parts in danger or shame or pain or feel unsafe. But I might ask them, hey, can you guys table it over here quietly while I talk to them? Because I have had situations where parts were fighting with each other and we couldn't talk to somebody because there was discord within.
Yeah.
And the suffering of trauma is the disconnection from discord within with our parts. There, I said it.
I'm glad you did, because if you didn't, I was going to.
What is the length of emotional pain? Someone is given bad news, someone is losing someone they love, something intense like that happens. What is the length of time for emotional pain? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, it's like 15 minutes.
So someone says to you, so-and-so died.
Mm-hmm.
And you're immediately thrown into
that happened to me today.
Emotional pain. You were immediately thrown into emotional pain, and you went to the past, to where this person and you first met, perhaps, where you guys have been, journeys that you've been on, conversations you've had, moments you've shared, and then there was a time where you disconnected from that individual.
Right.
And disconnects happen for 1,000 reasons, guys. Sometimes we're just not talking to a part. Sometimes we didn't know they were there. Sometimes they hide. And so you suffered.
You suffer because you rehearse.
Right. So you felt it for 15 minutes, and then you were like, I got to get out of here. Because beyond that point,
I did.
Was suffering.
I did.
Trauma happened.
And I needed to be distracted to get myself out of it.
Trauma happened and you had a response. Mm-hmm. You had a reaction, and then you had a response to that reaction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was, this hurts, this person is gone, and to get closure, I have to reconnect. And often when we all pursue closure, we want to separate.
Yeah. Like I did. I ran away.
And that's okay. Flight is an appropriate response. It was in service to survival that you flew.
Yeah.
You didn't stay on flight.
No.
You eventually resolved and returned and regulated and came back to and restored.
Right. Because I know better.
But it was a process. You had to go through a process. Yeah. So when something happens, there is a process that follows. But 15 minutes to 3 hours after the fact, your body's adrenaline system has already done what it's going to do. And your autonomic nervous system is either ricocheting up in and out of that window of capacity because you've allowed it, or you've responded, or someone has responded to you.
Right.
Which is community care.
And then
and helped you get back.
And in simplest terms, if I can just break this down, forgive me if this sounds insensitive, but most of the suffering that would result from news like that is because of overthinking. When it comes to actual feelings and everything else, I mean, we're literally set up to get over it within 15 minutes to 3 hours.
Yes, and get over it.
And I don't mean that in
right. Process it. We are built to process it. We are built to respond to it. We are built.
But we have poor habits.
We do have poor habits, and we're conditioned societally and otherwise. And we make a whole parade out of grief.
Yeah. Because everything in Western society is about how do we say? Capitalizing. We want to capitalize on things. So we have a funeral and flowers and and I'm not saying funerals are wrong by any stretch of the imagination, but
no, it can be a part of a process.
It can be a part of the
healing process. It gives you closure.
Yeah. And if you don't believe that, ask somebody that didn't get to do a funeral during 2020 when a loved one passed away of COVID.
There's a lot of unresolved trauma and loss and grief. And so we're coming up on our hour, so I don't want to keep our viewers too much longer, but I appreciate everyone that has stuck it with us for as long as you have.
And if you have any questions, hit them up in the chat.
I really appreciate that we got to talk about parts work, because it's such a powerful modality for understanding trauma and the responses and the relationships that can be born. Trauma bonding. Sometimes we're trauma bonded with our parts. Sometimes we're trauma bonded with those that we love. And like we've been married for 10 years now and in relationship longer. And we've been through traumas, we've been through life. And I know there's places in our marriage that I've had to go back and get closure about. This was a shitty time. These were shitty things said and done. We didn't process it in the most healthy way, but because I desire for our relationship today to be healthier than it was yesterday, or even more so than the day that I said I'd do to you, that it requires, you do have to go back. And trauma keeps you in the past, but it's calling you back there because it said, hey, you didn't deal with me.
Because you have to reconnect with that part.
Yep. You have to go back.
You have to go back to
Absolutely.
It and reconnect before it will heal. Because that's where the damage happens, is in the disconnection.
Yes. So if you're listening today and you're feeling there are parts of you that are disconnected, or you feel like your soul has suffered, you've carried burdens, you've felt exiled, you feel like you manage everything and you're maybe micromanaging everything now, and you've moved to unhealthy space with that, or you feel like you're always putting out fires for everyone else. I just want to hold space for you for a moment to let you know that your authentic self, every piece of your puzzle, every moment of mistake and growth that you have experienced are all beautiful, welcome, and deserving of being honored. And I hope that everyone that got to experience this with us today and just get a little bit into this parts work thing, that you are inspired in your healing journey to do your work. You deserve connection. You deserve to be in the fold. You deserve to feel compassion for yourself and courage. It's going to take courage to go back there. It's going to take curiosity, and you're going to find parts that you lost along the way.
Yeah.
When we connect with others, sometimes it means we disconnected elsewhere. And
I did misspeak, because the part of me that I was talking about in the last live was not my manager. It was not my original manager. It was my original firefighter.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's just such a great example of how a part can be born of one thing and have to shift into another in service to survival of the rest of the parts to keep our authentic self safe and protected. So if you've done that, if you've disconnected, it's okay. You deserve reconnection, and it's possible. And we're here to help and cheer you on. And so with that, we're going to pin this today, but I hope you guys will join us for future lives to talk more about parts work and rest. What is rest? What is restorative response system theory? We will get into it. And I am excited to share the healing journey with all of you.
Hopefully we have an opportunity on Sunday. I don't know what time yet because we don't know what our schedule is, and we've previously drawn a line in the sand on Sundays, but we're going to discuss that. Hopefully we can be back for at least a little while, but until then, live your best life.
From the inside out.
Namaste.